Long before Oklahoma State's new head man, Eric Morris, decided to lead the new charge of the Cowboys, he was already a legend in the Big 12. We know a lot about him, but we need to take a peek back into what created Eric Morris into what he is now, which is an absolute guru when it comes to evaluation of talent.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are we feeling, all of our Texas Tech and Big 12 brethren? Shout out to the regulars, a.k.a. regulators. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms at visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by Game Time Tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Get with the bee's knees for all of your ticketing needs today. Speaking of the bee's knees for all of your Texas Tech needs, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go straight to the source. This is supposed to be the organic rivalry between Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, yet we find ourselves mad about Jacob Rodriguez, but excited about what Texas Tech could do, which has caused a bunch of chaos in the CFP, which is precisely what we need. And who better than to help explain it from the standpoint of why Eric Morris is not only a perfect addition in Stillwater, Oklahoma, but how he created the image, the legacy, the mythical quarterback guru evaluation of talent he has become. It came from Lubbock, Texas. And Chris Level, the consummate professional, a.k.a. Papa Bear for Big 12 Squad Show. You have a very intimate knowledge of how Eric Morris came up through Texas Tech, and not only him being as a coach, but also going back to a player. I've heard the acronym Evil Elf, Angry Elf, a Violent Elf to some degree. Where did that come from? Because he's kind of told us about how the elf thing came about from the pirate himself, Mike Leach. Why did he get a little bit more of a added bravado to that nickname?
Well, Cody, thank you for having me on. Yeah, I've known Eric for, I don't know, I guess it's about over 20 years now. He's from about 20 minutes away from where I'm sitting here talking to you right now, and played his high school football and basketball and all the things. Eric is a guy that I think – we can get into the elf thing, I guess, but I don't. My guess is I don't know if that's his favorite thing.
It didn't seem like it in the press conference, but I do think that you can look at that nickname and it does fit his style of play.
Okay, yeah,
he's a dude that played like he was 6'4", and he may not even be 6 or 5'6". That style of play, I think, is partially why he is that old school, grab you by the lunch pail, go to war mentality. And that is exactly what we need in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Like, we talk about this thing potentially being a rivalry, and now that OU and Texas are gone, it should be a natural rivalry, but it just really hasn't turned into it, right? There's not a ton of animosity between Oklahoma State and Texas Tech other than the Xerox U stuff. I do feel like with how Joey McGuire has that thing rocking and rolling alongside Cody Campbell, this is enough to shake up this rivalry and potentially turn this into a heated battle between us, especially given the dynamics that Eric Morris is bringing to Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Yeah, and it won't, so let me get to that part, the potential rivalry aspect. But like, who Eric is when he was in high school, he was putting up big time numbers, and there's a lot of players out here in West Texas that often get overlooked, too small, not fast enough, not this, not that. And a lot of college coaches over the years wouldn't come out here. If you were any good, you were either going to go to Texas Tech or and then Texas Tech would be criticized years and years ago, like, hey, they're all going to go to the Metroplex or Houston or whatever and go get their players. And so Eric was somebody that basically told Mike and his staff back then in the mid 2000s, you're going to take me. I'm going to play for you. This is what's happening. And and he just kind of kept grinding away at it. And sure enough, they absolutely did. And I think Mike was thrilled that they did do that, because Eric is somebody that he's a tell me I can't guy.
Okay.
That's just who he is. I think you were mentioning some similarities in that, because the brilliance of Mike Leach is that he was one of the most stubborn people you would ever meet, and that's what made him so good at what he did, because he truly believed in his scheme and his methods and all those things, and would never waver, even when really you should, or maybe do you need to tweak it, and
right.
Even when you're down in a game, let's see. I remember, and I think Eric was a part of this team in 2006. You were down 38-7 and versus Minnesota in a bowl game. Came back to win it. Did you change anything? No. You just kept doing what you were doing, and that's the stubborn part of what I'm talking about. But Eric was somebody that he was a perfect fit for what they did on offense here. He had great hands, very good grasp of leverage and routes and the offense, and being able to go find green grass and sit down and all the things.
Right.
And I think that he has a chip on his shoulder, and always did. I saw his parents this past weekend at a Texas Tech basketball game, and they were headed to Stillwater for this press conference. And they are fired up, and and Eric was here years later as a coach, and I think that was it was not a great time for the program, as you were trying to figure out if Cliff Kingsbury and staff was going to work. The recruiting wasn't just all world and all those things, but Eric and Sonny Cumbie, who is now the head coach at Louisiana Tech, were here in Cliff.
Yep.
There's so many connections. I mean, Seth Dagey, who was here in 2011, is now calling plays for University of Arizona. They're all kind of intertwined and have similar views on the air raid and their twist on it, and all that stuff. But Eric was always going to be a coach. That's just what he did and what he wanted to be. But most people didn't even know what Incarnate Word was.
Right.
And he turned that thing into a pretty good program. And I mean, heck, the guy calling plays for Texas Tech now, Mac Leftwich, was under Eric Morris at Incarnate Word and at Washington State. So that it's kind of incestuous in a weird way, because Sonny Dykes, who's the head coach at TCU, he was Eric's kind of coordinator at the time whenever there. Dana Holgerson was obviously a part of that run. But, yeah, Eric was around a lot of Lincoln Riley. I mean, we just keep going. A lot of brilliant offensive minds, and I think Eric was able to pull a lot from a lot of those guys, and he's grinded. He's paid his dues, and I'm glad that he's gotten this to this level, because he deserves to be here.
Well, incestuous was not on my bingo card, but we are going to talk about the SEC a little bit in segment 3. Before we get to segment 2, the parallels between Boone Pickens, Cody Campbell, some of the blueprint laid before us all. Real quickly, I do want to ask, what did Mike Leach do that has made him such a unique coach to all of these guys? Because you mentioned some of the names. Eric Morris got to work with Coach Cliff Kingsbury. He got to work, to the development side of Chandler Morris. He got to work with Lincoln Riley. You named some of the other coaches that have worked directly with Coach Morris. What made the Mike Leach tree so absolutely magical? Because Dana Holgerson's in there as well. And our GM, Raj Murdy, has a lot of ties to Dana Holgerson. Obviously, Dana had a ton of success in Stillwater. What about Mike Leach made him so rare that 90% of his coaches that used to play for him end up being massively successful elsewhere? And they have a different kind of eye for offensive talent. You got all of these Leach tree coaches. They find the talent that nobody else was looking at. Cam Ward was a 0-star because he ran a triple option style of attack. Drew Mestemaker was a 0-star because he didn't even really get to play a whole lot of high school quarterback, if any, but he finds things that nobody else finds. Lincoln Riley does the same thing. All of those runs of Heisman winner, and a Heisman runner-up at OU. What did Mike Leach do that created this insane ability to unearth talent that nobody else sees?
Yeah, there was a couple other names. Mike's first staff here, Art Browse was on it.
Oh, look at you go!
Art Browse, that was the first college job that Coach Browse had was on Mike's staff. Dave Aranda was also on that staff and the first on the first Mike Leach staff as a defensive GA, I think maybe.
Okay.
So anyway, it's fascinating, and that we're going back 24, 25 years ago, but Mike was outside the box. And I think that, it's some of these jobs, and football can be played a variety of different ways, but at some of these jobs, you were never going to be able to recruit the best offensive and defensive linemen and the biggest quarterback and this and that, right? Okay. These were going to the quote unquote blue bloods. Well, what schematically can we do that levels the playing field? And his offensive system, kind of, which is he learned under Hal Mumme at Kentucky and all those things years and years ago, that leveled the playing field a bit. And it worked mostly. It didn't work all the time.
Right.
Bigger, faster beat you at times too. But when you started to get really good players, I mean, it would work. But Mike just had an eye, man. And there's many stories about coaching under him, and you're going to work at 3:00 in the afternoon and you're getting off at 4 a.m. And that was like, and then a lot of guys, it was like, this is tricky trying to have a family and wife and kids when I'm got this weird out, but that's how Mike's brain works. He was kind of a night owl and all those kinds of things. So, but again, Eric was just around this, right? I mean, he was around it.
Yeah.
And then I think that Cliff had his own way of doing things. Cliff's a brilliant offensive mind, and probably better suited to be in the NFL than college because of the recruiting aspect. But Eric and Cliff and a guy named Trey Haverty, they identified Pat Mahomes, gave him a shot, and that seemed to turn out pretty well. But the stories, on and on. I mean, you mentioned Cam Ward and John Mateer. I think Mac Liftwich and Eric were kind of in tandem with Cam Ward and John Mateer, and then there's a variety of folks there. So it's a good success story. And back on the rivalry thing, it is worth pointing out, Cody, that Eric is very good friends with Joey McGuire. I think that there's a mentor aspect of Joey and a friendship. I think that the two have exchanged a lot of phone calls recently about advice and how to do this and how to do that. And it's funny you said about heated rivalry. This may not be what people want to hear. I mean, they will try to beat each other. I mean, Eric Morris's North Texas team played in Lubbock a year ago. It was a lopsided Texas Tech win, but these guys are friends, and they are. I think there's a lot of admiration and a lot of information exchanged on, hey, man, this is what I would do, or this is what's worked for us, man, all that kind of stuff. This is how the industry works. So they will try to beat each other. There's no doubt, but this won't be some spirited where, man, I legitimately hate the other guy. That's not what will happen here. I hate it. I hate that everybody here is so fond of Eric and knows him and all those things, and that he's in the conference, because it's already weird enough with Sonny Dykes and all that kind of stuff. But I think this will be a really good thing for Oklahoma State, because Eric will. I mean, again, tell him he can't. I mean, you heard what he said yesterday about like the playing OU, like. Just so everybody knows, man, I'm good to go for that if anybody's asking. So that's just how he is.
He is about that life. Before we get to segment 2, real quick, you mentioned Baker Mayfield. I know a lot of people do try to tie into Baker. I don't know necessarily if he had a hand in the developmental aspect or the recruiting aspect, but I do know that he said the first thing he did when he got to Washington State was go to Mike Leach and say, hey, there's this guy named Baker Mayfield, and he's in Lubbock right now. We need to give him a scholarship because Tech's not going to give him one. And Mike Leach decided not to give Baker a scholarship. But again, I think it's a testament that he has an eye that a lot of people in the country do not have. And speaking of having an eye for how things should potentially be. I think you're going to draw some parallels. We can talk about the rivalry aspect real quick. Boone Pickens built Oklahoma State into what it is. Cody Campbell is turning turning Texas Tech rather into an absolute juggernaut in this conference. We need to see what they can do on the national scale. We need to provide that spark for the Big 12. Texas Tech can do it. But before we get to that, it is that time of the season to start getting gifts prepared or getting gifts out in the mail. And feeding people, it's like finding the perfect gift that, actually everyone's going to love. And when you want both handled in one smooth move, Omaha Steaks is the way to go. From hosting to gifting, they deliver the world's best steak experience right to your door. Because during their Sizzle All the Way sale, you can stock up and save in a huge way. 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. And it gets even better. Locked On College listeners get an additional $35 off with the code COLLEGE at checkout, all one word. You're going to love how easy it is to gift. Shows up frozen in its own individually packaged containers, ready to cook. Steaks are perfectly aged and insanely tender. It's restaurant levels at home. So many options: fillets, burgers, comfort meals, sides, desserts. You can build your own box for this holiday season. So save big on gourmet gifts and more holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during the Sizzle All the Way sale and add an additional $35 off by using the promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. Make sure that you see the site for details. Head on over to omahasteaks.com to be the best gift giver in your entire family with Omaha Steaks. All right, buddy. Boone Pickens built this Taj Mahal palace that we have in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And without that, you can't isolate whether Oklahoma State's going to have the level of success they did for 18 years, right? Now Cody Campbell is stepped in, and what all Oklahoma State country has said, man, if we only still had Boone Pickens alive, if we had another Boone Pickens, he would try to replicate what Cody Campbell is now doing, because the precedence has been set in the Big 12 that, in my opinion, you kind of need to have one massive dump financially to get the roster in the right direction. Because, correct me if I'm wrong here, Chris Level, you don't have to spend $28 million anymore because of the cachet that you established this season. Now you've got 5 stars that are wanting to come to Lubbock on a regular basis. Naturally, the NIL rev share component is part of it. But in my opinion, you guys were successful in your mission to get Texas Tech at a different level in recruiting without having to continuously spend that money. Would you say that's fair moving forward?
Yeah, I think, Cody gets all the news, but it's a variety of people here that are very wealthy and well-to-do and very aligned, including the school president and the athletic director. And so not every school has that. Luckily, there's no ego there. That people may scoff at that or laugh at that, but they're very much – I think a year ago you see, hey, there's no Texas, there's no Oklahoma. Like, there's an opportunity here to push forward, and the league kind of needs somebody's plural to kind of emerge. There's opportunity here, and somebody's going to win this league, and somebody's going to win these various sports and all that. So I think they were, and they're also worried about the next shakeup in college athletics. What happens to the Big 12 and the haves and have-nots and all that stuff if there's another shakeup in 3 to 4 years? We need to put our best foot forward, was the thought. I think that you have established that what you did, and we weren't sure. Nobody around here was.
Yeah, no, right.
Proof of process. Is this going to work? And I think that people can now see it did, and you're still going. You definitely have to have some outside help. There's just no. I mean, you saw what happened with Kalani Sitake with BYU, and he had leverage. He used it, and now what are they gonna like? Hey, we're gonna start doing full rev share and giving you some more money on top of that, and all that to play ball here, and that's just what it takes. It's not. It sucks, but that's the reality of the world we're living in. Some people will be able to keep up better than others, but I don't know if I know the answer, Cody, on what it will take year to year. I don't see too much regression, but I do think there's a component of you build nice stuff, you have some success, and you create some brand awareness or a vibe kind of, and you win, I think, yeah, maybe you don't have to go overpay for this guy or have to money whip to go get a guy and beat out whatever school it is in a different league, in your own league, whatever. And I think that there's some truth to that. We'll see. But I think that, and I'm sure this is probably the first question that Eric asked to the Chad Weiberg and the leadership at Oklahoma State.
Yep.
What? Yes, I'm worried about me. Yes, I want to surround myself with good coaches, but what can we do for players? That's just the name of the game. Because honestly, I think Drew Mestamaker will obviously follow him, but he will have a lot of offers out there that Oklahoma State may not, financially. I mean, that's just the world we're all playing in. And so, but I'm sure there's some loyalty and all that. And if Drew is smart, he would stick with Eric, because Eric obviously can make him a very wealthy man in time. So, but I don't know if I answered your question, but those are my thoughts on just kind of like Cody's involvement, the other Dusty Womble and John Sellers and Gary Peterson, all the people that are involved here, and kind of what it takes, because you just saw Utah, dabble in a lot of private equity. What are they doing that for? It's because BYU is right up the street and they're feeling pressure to keep up. And so they're willing to think outside the box a little bit on trying to maintain competitiveness, and because their rival is doing it.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a massive differentiation between what you spent this year and what you're about to spend. I guess my point is, like, maybe it took $28 million to get this thing rocking and rolling, but now it's only going to take $19 to $21 million.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll see. A lot of the numbers that have been thrown out associated with Texas Tech are wrong. It's funny to me because everybody tosses out all kinds of numbers, and yet this is what Oregon does. This is what Indiana was doing, by the way. This is what your Georgias and Bamas, but nobody really attaches that with some of those schools. So anyway, it's
because we're in the Big 12, brother Ben, and that's also why every single fan, not even in the Big 12, in my opinion, if you are so tired of the constant ESPN pushing the SEC down our throats, and look no further than the metrics that they were putting up on the screens and comparing all the teams, they did not put BYU up on the screen because they knew optically what it would have looked like. People with a functioning brain that aren't SEC fans would have looked at that and said, well, actually, BYU has the better argument to the team that inevitably got left out. So we're about to jump into that fun stuff real quickly. I think it is kind of ironic, and I hate saying this with the Xerox U connotations that do get thrown back and forth, but we stole Eric Morris, and the fact that Joey McGuire is so stable is precisely why I was excited. I mean, you and I have talked even on the squad show. One of the reluctancies in regards to Colin Klein was he's going to take the K-State job, right? Whether it's 3 months, 3 years, 6 years, it seemed like an inevitability. Ironically enough, then they kind of fast forwarded and went ahead and pulled the trigger, got Colin Klein. So I do think that's kind of a fun shakeup. But I think when you look directly at Eric Morris, what Cody Campbell's doing, you mentioned it, there's no doubt that Raj Murdy and Eric Morris had to have that conversation with Chad Weiberg about financially. We keep hearing from Mike Gundy about how broke everybody is. Is that true? Right? And so for him to decide to come to Oklahoma State over in Arkansas, I do think that financially Oklahoma State did have to put their best foot forward. And I don't think maybe it's going to be $28 million, but I've heard grumblings that it's going to be at least in that 18 range. We'll see what comes to fruition. But I think the blueprint has been laid by Texas Tech. I do think that you have to have at least one massive infusion financially into rebuilding. But here's the downside, Chris. If it goes ta-tas up real quick, I don't know that your donor base is going to rally again for that amount of money, right? So it's a darn if you do, darn if you don't. You're going to kind of have to do it. But if it goes south, you're probably not going to get $28 million worth of funds ever put together again. Would you say?
Yeah, there's got to be some trust there, and there's got to be, there's got to be some just good old fashioned faith that, hey, because there's not any return on these investments for a lot of these folks that are going above and beyond what the rev share is paying. I mean, yeah, it's all tied to NIL, but theoretically, I mean, there's, you're donating a lot, and like you're not getting that back, unless you're just because like what Cody and Gary and John and Dusty and all these folks that helped here, that they were investing into the city, the university, hoping enrollment would grow because this program is the front porch of university, and they've got a goal to grow their enrollment. And I think they genuinely, what they got out of it was the feeling of winning, which you can't go buy. I mean,
that is true.
A lot of people put a lot of money into a lot of these things over the years, and it doesn't work. And go look at LSU's top portal class from last year, and and now they're spending all kinds of money for different reasons. So, but you're right. You may only get one crack at one bite at the apple on, like, okay, how are you going to, so it's all about the system you have in place. It's all about your development. And then the secret sauce here is culture. And I think Eric he'll be really good in that vein, with keeping a locker room together and playing hard for each other and getting them to care about one another. And because that's the hardest thing these days, with so many pieces moving in and out year to year. And Eric is used to this, but that's the secret sauce.
Well, congratulations. I think you guys are the shining example, not just in the Big 12, but nationally, on how it can go when things kind of fall in line and you do the right talent evaluation and get the right people. Because there's a lot of reports that Oklahoma State spent anywhere from 11 to 15 mil. Let's split the difference. Say it's 13 mil. We spent 13 mil on a roster that was significantly worse than Tulsa, at least at the time that we played them. That's where you have problems. And again, you mentioned ROI. We have not experienced ROI. You got to think about it. 2 years ago was the first time we even attempted to pretend to get into the NIL game with Ollie Gordon, the offensive line, Nick Martin, and it was an absolute disaster. So the ROI, the last 2 years of NIL, the only 2 years we've been anywhere near competing in the NIL market, it's been an absolute disaster. So I'm glad that Texas Tech kind of has laid this blueprint, and I'm glad that Oklahoma State made the decision when they did. I don't think that optically it went down the right way. It could have been handled better, probably by both sides. But this is why you had to get it done, because you had to get a head start on a guy that was building something very comparable to what Joey McGuire is doing. It seems like the trend right now is hire a young dude that has a lot of connections in recruiting, that can bring a decent number of dudes with him to help build a roster. And I'm very, very excited that Eric Morse is that dude. Just like I'm excited for what Tech can do. I know you got to skedaddle on off of here, so we'll be real quick and go over some of the Big 12 conversation and how we're all Recom Nation at the moment. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, we got to talk about the bee's knees. For all of your ticketing needs, that is Game Time Tickets. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be real. Sometimes the hardest part to anything is getting the tickets. This is why Game Time is absolutely clutch. It's finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back into your hands and makes growing the World Cup more realistic because you are in the stands. If you pull up on the app, you see the layout. It's so simplistic. You scroll through the matchups, compare the seat views, pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets loaded in minutes. There's no confusion, no hunting for fine print. Prices include fees up front, so there's no last-second hanky-panky at checkout. Alerts for teams and matches make it very easy to grab the tickets the moment they drop instead of missing out. So take the guesswork out of you buying tickets for the World Cup and concerts, music, theater, comedy. Doesn't matter. Game Time has you covered. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $28 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create that account, redeem that code, and use that Locked On College, all one word, for 20% off. It's simple. You swipe, tap, ticket, and go to download Game Time tickets today. All right, buddy, I'm going to let you run up off here, but Texas Tech is the Big 12 representative in the CFP, which we all saw coming. I cannot wait to see what Texas Tech does in this thing. I don't love the bye. In my personal opinion, I would prefer a 5-9 seed, especially with how unique of a setting Lubbock, Texas is and what you guys have built there. But nonetheless, you get the bye, which likely means you get the second round draw against Oregon. We need some redemption for what they did to us. So trust and believe Oklahoma State country is going to be behind Texas Tech in this one. But did BYU get royally screwed, moderately screwed, not really all that screwed? What is your opinion on that deal? Because, again, they don't put them up against Notre Dame or Alabama or Texas for a reason. What say you, sir?
Yeah, I think the problem that BYU had, and it's just unlucky, is that what was the combined score was 63-14 in the two games they played Texas Tech. I think that, I've seen a lot of the conversation about, well, Bama didn't suffer because they lost but they also, the one thing they had in their back pocket was they also had beaten Georgia at Georgia.
Yep.
Had Texas Tech and BYU split, both teams are probably in. If Texas Tech and BYU only played one time and BYU had missed, they'd gotten another win on their schedule and played Texas Tech, and they probably still would have found their way in. Yeah, but they got screwed. They should have been in before this game was ever played. It's unfortunate. And this is why, and folks around the Big 12 may not agree. They may not want to root for Texas Tech. I get it. I mean, would I be sitting there? I don't know if I would be sitting there rooting for TCU or Baylor or whatever. But the reality is, for the league, you need to get into this tournament and you need to do a little damage, because you need to break these glass ceilings that are in place, because your league isn't getting enough respect. The only reason that Texas Tech got the respect that it has is because they won all 12 games by 20-plus points.
Right.
And there's still a thought that, okay, well, let's see what they do now that they join a different weight class now. And
correct.
So if anything, you just hope that there's a little damage done here to kind of show everybody. So next year when we're having these debates that, hey, they can do it. That league can do it. That league does have legit members in it and all those kinds of things. But the whole thing's flawed. I mean, you're telling me that, because, Notre Dame got screwed, BYU got screwed. We can't have a deal with Tulane and James Madison in it. I mean, it's not the 12 teams.
Right.
Come on, man. So I'm not necessarily a big expansion guy, but if that's what it's going to take, then do it, and then adjust the bowls accordingly, because the bowl system is a mess right now too, because teams are opting out, and I get it, but it's just the whole thing's a bit of a mess. And being in a deal where it's either playoff or bust mentality is really tricky for this sport. And that's, not to sound like the old guy, but that kind of sucks, because I'd love the December the 27th through the January 1st, week and all that stuff. But those days may be numbered. I don't know. Conference championship games may be numbered. I don't know, but there's coming. There's change coming for sure.
It's sad to see where we are, right? The bowl games have become extremely insignificant. It used to be about the packages, right? And the bags and the watches and the gaming systems. But now that NIL's come into the equation, none of that really matters, which I think is an absolute travesty. Looking at you, K-State and ISU, at least they have a viable reasoning. Right? I mean, I still don't agree with it, because playing a little bit of college football, I saw the struggle of the walk-ons and the third stringers and the second stringers that, were always on time and they were never late and they did the extra stuff and they never got opportunities. So I hate it for guys like that. I mean, you and I both know that exists. But at the same point in time, look at Notre Dame. Like, they have no excuse. So I hope they get penalized next year, because if you look at their schedule next year, Chris, it's easier than this year's schedule. Not that I can talk as an Oklahoma State fan about whether a schedule is going to be easy or not to navigate, but it's insane to me that Notre Dame continuously gets these benefits, and supposedly they've already come out and said that the CFP told them next year, no matter what their schedule is, that as long as they're in the top 12, they're in the playoff no matter what. Like, it proves once again that this CFP thing, yes, they're all tied together, and it's all a narrative-driven, propaganda-based industry that they want to push down our throats constantly, which is why I think every Big 12 fan is doing themselves a disservice if they're not hardcore rooting for Texas Tech. Because what do people say about the Big 12 right now? I've seen clips about it going out. Well, the last time a Big 12 team got invited to the big boy party, they got beat by 60 points in the national title game. And before that, what do people always say about OU, the team that could get there, the little engine that could but can never win the whole thing? The Big 12's been tied to this negative connotation for years and years and years, and we need somebody, anybody, to break through that glass ceiling. And you guys probably have the best defensive line, front seven, that the Big 12 has seen. I mean, I hate saying that because Oklahoma State's 2021 defense was legendary, but your defense is better. This is the best defense I've seen in the Big 12 since some of those old school Texas squads. And that alone has me insanely excited, man. We need the representation. We need to break through that glass ceiling. Everyone's talking about the Big 12, the Big 12, the Big 12, and Texas Tech's in a different weight class. If you go punch Oregon in the mouth repeatedly and you put them into submission and you put yourself into a national title conversation, I do think that it'll at least help the Big 12 moving forward. And that's 100% what we need. So I love it. And lastly, before you go, how long do you think it takes Eric Morris to institute this turnaround? Let's say he gets Drew Mestemaker and Caleb Hawkins and Wyatt Young and Braden Knox and Sadiq Clements. Say he gets all of those top-notch North Texas dudes to Stillwater. Do you think Oklahoma State's competitive for 500 next year?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think. I mean, it depends on what you're – yeah, if you're talking about trying to win the conference championship, that's going to take some time. But I think if you're just talking about being competitive, no, he will make things very entertaining and interesting immediately. He will demand it. That's, again, tell him he can't. And they'll the thing about the way that they'll play is that they'll never be out of a game. You know, it'll be an entertaining brand of football. But how quickly do you get all the pieces, and what does the roster turnover look like? How many does he keep? How many does he bring in? You know, there's a lot of aspects here, but at the end of the day, you'll score some points. There's no doubt about that.
Well, that's what's always had Stillwater America ticking for the last 2 decades. So that's another reason why I do think that it's an absolutely flawless fit. Thank you very much, Chris Oval, for coming on and giving us a little bit of a breakdown. Because you've known Eric Morris since he was, early entry-level freshman trying to prove himself on the field. What he has turned into is absolutely insane. We're lucky that we get to be the beneficiaries of it. I don't necessarily love hearing the fact that the Texas Tech Oklahoma State rivalry might end up looking a lot like Oklahoma State Kansas State rivalry, where it's a bunch of hugs and a bunch of holding hands, kumbaya, barbecuing over Budweiser's. But you know what? We can all collectively hate Utah together. I'm okay with that, Chris Level. Thank you very much for that segue. I greatly appreciate your time. As always, let the fine folks out here know how they can track you down in Oklahoma State country to see the work that you put together, because you are the consummate professional that we all do, in fact, look up to.
And my sweet daughter is about to graduate from your prestigious institution this coming May. So I've got a lot of love for Oklahoma State. But yeah, Locked On Texas Tech. Cowan and I are on there 5 days a week, like my man Stovall is doing the Pokes thing. So appreciate your time. Good luck to everybody out there. We'll be rooting for Coach Morris, other than just when they play Texas Tech. But it'll be a good fit. I think they did really well there. Chad Weiberg also spent many, many years in Lubbock, Texas as well. So he's good people too. Known him for a bit as well, and he's a class act as well. So anyway, appreciate you, Stovall, and keep hope alive. We'll talk next time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, brother, man. I greatly appreciate it. All righty, y'all. That's probably all we have to do for this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. And wreck them for this one. We need Texas Tech to carry the mantle forward for the Big 12, and I think that could potentially open the door for BYU to not get screwed in the future. Anywho, hit the like button if you like it, dislike if you did, and that's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast and people out there, you're everything that makes this work. I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. All righty, y'all. Later, my taters.